Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the KTBS Political Podcast, the app. I always have to have this disclaimer. The app has nothing to do with the internet. In this case, the app stands for Architects, People, and Politics. We like to visit with just about anybody along the political spectrum. This week, something a little different. We've done it before, but not a whole lot. We went on location to tape this episode of the app. We're going to visit with the Speaker of the House of the Louisiana Legislature, Phillip Devillier, not Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House for the United States Congress. In this case, it's Phillip Devillier, but he and Senate President Cameron Henry have been pretty busy since the end of the last legislative session. They've been traveling all over the state, holding town halls, getting views and opinions from constituents all across Louisiana as to their reaction from the things that went on during the last session, especially when it comes to automobile insurance, and of course what they want to see happen again in the future. So this episode of the app was recorded on location. Let's go with part one of our visit with Louisiana Speaker of the House, Phillip Devillier. Okay. All right, we're with Speaker of the House, Phillip Devillier. We're out at the Silver Star Smokehouse. We found a little corner of the Silver Star to get in and have a little conversation. First of all, thanks for being here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here.
I really appreciate it. You've been busy. You've been all over the state, right?
Yeah, we have been. It's been great. You know, over the last, 3 to 4 weeks, we've been traveling around the state with several of the chairs of the House and just getting around, a few senators showing up as well. It's been nice, and just letting the people of Louisiana know the accomplishments, the legislation that we've passed over the last, we're saying 18 months, but now we're getting into 20 months since our first session started. So.
Well, I think you've had 8, or I think this might be stop number 8, and then the next day, tomorrow's Monroe, right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And you wrap it up. So when you go around, and I know you said you met with a student body at LSUE, what's on their mind? What's of most interest to the folks around the state?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting with everything going on in the political world today, and I think the world in general is there's a lot of just misunderstanding, I think, what really goes on, say, in Baton Rouge. Mm-hmm. And I know you asked a couple of questions earlier, but you know, I think the people of Louisiana need to know that they do often see the disagreements on TV.
Right.
Or however, you know, we agree way more than we disagree, and sometimes where we disagree, that does get some heightened emotions, but that's what being in the legislature is like. But I think what was interesting last week when Chairman Miller and I were sitting down in front of the students at LSUE, the students, I would say overall, they don't get to see reality. You know, with just him and I sitting here talking, Dustin's a Democrat and I'm a Republican, and you know, we don't always agree on legislation. Sure. And we just kind of talk through it, and how do you feel about certain things? How do you de-escalate stuff? So it was a really good conversation for us to have in front of the student body. And of course, we opened it up for questions and things of that nature. I think they were really surprised to be able to have an opportunity to ask questions. So there weren't a whole lot of questions asked, but I think it's something that we as elected leaders should go out into our schools and into our different districts and just allow people to ask questions and try to be more as engaged as we possibly have time to be. For sure.
Yeah, well, I think that transparency, right? That's what it's all about. Yeah, honesty and transparency, and as you said, just being genuine, authentic. Yeah. That's what our politicians need. So talk to me about, you said you really wanted to get the message out of some of the things that legislature has been able to accomplish over the past 20 months. So hit us with a few.
Yeah, so we usually start off our town hall meetings with crime. And Chairman Villio, she's been a phenomenal chairperson in when it comes to criminal justice reform. We've passed over 200 criminal justice reform bills, and you'll see if you listen to the meeting today where our crime rates have decreased by 11% across Louisiana. Now I know in our major metropolitan areas like say New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Shreveport, they are having some difficulties with crime, and I think you're going to see us trying to do even more so to address that and try to be a better partner with our locals to do what we can to address the problems we have with crime. But then our second thing we usually cover is education, and Chairman Laurie Schlegel has done just a phenomenal job with that. And you'll see for the first time in Louisiana's history where she'll talk about being 49th nationally ranked in education, and everyone in Louisiana says, "Oh, we're last in this, we're last in that," and we hear that over and over again.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but what you see today in the newest rankings came out, Louisiana has moved in a positive direction, further than any other state in the nation, and today we rank 32nd.
Yeah.
And I mean, some people say, well, that's not anything to be proud of. When you go from 49th to 32nd, that's a huge momentum gain, and I'll tell you, we're extremely excited with what we're doing by letting the teachers teach.
Yeah.
We're working hand in glove with Cade Brumley, the head of the Department of Education. And I know y'all have some great school boards here, great teachers here. So, you know, we certainly need to thank our teachers for their work as well.
Well, I'm married to a teacher. So when you say let the teachers teach, I mean, getting rid of all the superfluous paperwork that they just spend hours and hours filling out, that's part of it, right?
Absolutely. You know, I can remember a few years ago, I had brought a bill. It was one of the first ESA bills, or Education Savings Account bills. And doing that, you get pretty engaged with the teachers, you know, and the school boards and things of that nature. And they said, you know, if you would just allow some of these things that y'all placed on our backs to be removed. I'm like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, you know, you're making us teach CPR, you're making us teach swimming lessons, and you're taking us out of the classroom to teach math and writing. You know, it just kind of makes some real common sense. So we actually started looking at all the different things through the years the legislature has placed on the backs of teachers. And you're 100% right. We have continually just placed more and more on these backs of the teachers, and it's taken them out of doing what they love to do, which is just educate the child.
Yeah.
So I think that's really going to make some great changes for our teaching environment. I'm excited about that. The next topic that we talk about is our tax policy.
Yeah.
And Chairwoman Julie Emerson is the chair of Ways and Means. And in November of last year, we went and had a special session on our tax policy.
And she's been a guest on this podcast talking about that very subject.
She's a rock star. I tell you, we have some phenomenal chairwomen. But so Julie has cut the corporate income tax from the highest rate of 7.5% down to 5.5%. She's gotten rid of franchise tax, and she's cut the personal income tax rate from 4.25 down to a flat 3%.
Yeah.
So everyone today is going to be paying less when it comes to their income taxes, which we should all be very proud of that. And when you look at those types of policies, what we've seen now nationally again in the rankings, we were 42nd in our national business rankings. Well, today I think we're like 18th in the nation.
Wow, that's quite a leap.
It's a huge leap. And when I look at the economic outlook of Louisiana, I mean, it's something to really and truthfully be paying attention to. So that's incredible. And, you know, we see where we have today, and when we started this tour, we had $60 billion of new investment coming to Louisiana.
Yeah.
Today, just a few weeks later, we're up to $70 billion of new investments coming in. I mean, you don't have to travel far from where we're sitting right now to go see the Meta site, which was one of the first announcements we made last year. And I mean, I can tell you in Caddo, they have a place called Boneyard, another one called Synthetic. That's two new announcements for our area where we are today. And then in Ouachita and Union, it looks like line 1516, Reclaim 4, and Pulp is some additional announcements that have been let out recently. So all of those things are really and truthfully exciting. I don't know if you want to touch any on that, but of course.
Yeah, I would. Can you expound on those a little bit, those things in cattle?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't have the specifics on them. That would be something you would ask LED. But when we were sitting down here, I just happened to pull my sheet out on all the announcements, the $70 billion worth of announcements. And I was like, well, let me look. When there was actually two up in Ouachita. Two in Ouachita, one in Union, and two in Caddo. So I can certainly get you with our phenomenal LED Secretary Susan Bourgeois and let her kind of talk more on those.
I think she was here last week. I didn't get a chance to visit with her, though. I think she was here when the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, went back home. So
many great things happening here. And Susan, look, we have just a phenomenal team in the legislature, you know, between the House and the Senate. Obviously, the governor's leadership is just great. And then all of his secretaries, I mean, they're just doing a great job. And we're working in the same direction finally.
So what's led to this $70 million in new investment? Is it just the new leadership? The new governor?
Look, I would tell you, I think there's a lot of things that are leading to this, really and truthfully a lot of things. I mean, you can go all the way up to the President of the United States, to our Speaker, Mike Johnson, the Majority Whip, Steve Scalise. You can look at the relationship between that group, and then you can also look at the relationship between the President and our governor. You can look at the leadership between our Senate President and Congress. I mean, that's just been great. And I'll tell you, when you start looking at the policies, right? I mean, I can remember sitting down with the governor on day one, right when he was governor-elect, and he said, Philip, I know you want to do all these things with education and infrastructure and tax policy and on and on and on, oil and gas. And he said, we're not going to be able to I mean, you can have all the perfect policies, but if you can't live safe in Louisiana, people aren't going to want to be here. They're going to keep moving. So I mean, he's just, I would say, went after crime just head on. And I mean, it's generational. It's something that you can't just go and pass laws and expect everything to get safe again. I mean, it goes through your court systems. The people that are incarcerated, you have to make sure that you offer programming to where those that want to maybe pick up some sort of trade, when they get out, they have an opportunity to go to work. I'll tell you, y'all Sheriff Whitehorn somewhere
Henry Whitehorn.
Yeah, he's got a great programming in his sheriff, in his jail, and I've been through that. I've watched the training that goes on, and every single one of those inmates that get out that want to go through these programs, they have an opportunity to actually go straight to work. And what's incredible is if you serve your time and you still have some education to do, you can go back after you're released and finish that program. So, you know, you ask, what do you think it is that's driving that $70 billion?
Yeah.
I think it's probably several legs
all of that stuff,
to a stool. Yeah, I mean, you're going to have crime, you're going to have good education. I mean, you bring people here to work, or they want to make sure that their children have an opportunity to get educated, right? They want to drive on good roads and make sure that they can get from point A to point B, to work, to home, to play. And then, of course, to be able to move your product in and out of the state, that's important. So our roads and bridges are extremely important. You think about our tax policy, those businesses want to have a good competitive tax policy. No businesses want to come to Louisiana if they were paying a 7.5% corporate income tax rate, a franchise tax, and an inventory tax. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So we're really and truthfully lowering the corporate income. We're getting rid of the franchise and getting rid of the inventory. It's all in the plan, so it's great.
Is the goal eventually, at least on the personal side, to eliminate the income tax?
That is our long-term goal. You know, when you think about the amount of our state general fund, it's around $12 billion. And I would say the personal income tax rate probably generates somewhere around $4.5 to $5 billion. So to get rid of that altogether, you would almost be cutting your state general fund in half. Now, when you think about that, well, what does that mean? There's only about $3 billion in our state general fund that we can actually touch. And most people don't realize, I mean, we give about $4.5 billion of our state general fund to local K through 12 education through the MFP formula. So you say, we want to be more like Texas. They don't have a corporate or personal income tax. All right, well, if you look at their property tax, and they have great schools, and look, I was in Texas yesterday, they're building things everywhere you look. They have a high property tax. And the state doesn't necessarily prop up the schools. So yeah, we could certainly get rid of the personal income tax, and then we would probably have to shift some of the burden to the local governments, and then how would they be able to pick up that? So it's a difficult thing, but getting a 3%,
that's pretty good.
It's great when you look at across the nation, the states that actually have a personal income tax. We have, if not the lowest, one of the lowest in the nation.
Well, that's got to make it attractive for investors, right? For people that want to come in here and start businesses.
Yes, indeed. And we didn't touch on some of the other things that we're discussing in these town halls. So something that's very important is our budget. And when you look at, we've had a very conservative budget over the last few years. And by having a conservative budget, I would tell you, last year we had a 1% growth rate in our budget. This year we had a total standstill budget. We said, well, what does that mean? Well, I'll tell you, the sheriffs came in and they were like, we need to increase our per diem on the inmates that we house. I think they were getting like $26 per day on their inmates, and that's state inmates. And I'm like, well, what does it need to be? And they said, well, we need $70. And I was like, oh man.
That's a big jump.
It is, and for every dollar that you increase that per diem rate, it's about $6 million to the state general fund. But in all honesty, it's costing us like $70 per inmate on the state side. So if we're giving that inmate to a local, they're absorbing a tremendous amount of cost and really a loss to their jails to house the state inmates. So we sat down and we said, look, we can give you $3. So $3, I think the House gave $1, the Senate gave $1, and the governor gave $1.
Okay.
Well, I mean, do the math on that. That's $18 million.
That's a lot, yeah.
So it's hard. It's very difficult to have a standstill budget when you have to do things like that. I mean, when you think about the teacher pay raise, that teacher pay raise for $1,000 to a teacher, that's about $100 million to the state general fund. The last few years we've done these one-time stipends, which I know you said your wife's a teacher, and that $2,000 to the teacher stipend, when you do it across the board, and then I think we did a support staff as well, that's $200 million.
$1,000 for the support staff, I think,
$200 million to our state general fund. So it is a very, very expensive, and I mean, it's well worth it. Everybody supports the teachers. It's just we have to make sure that we can sustain that. So, anyway, trying to keep a standstill budget's been important. When we meet REC, we estimate
I was just going to ask you about that because you came up with a surplus, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've done a good job when we meet with REC and we estimate what we think our revenues are going to be. I mean, you look at your sales tax revenues, your corporate income, your personal income, your I would say your severance tax, all of those things that you anticipate to get in, and then we form a budget off of that, right? And then we'll go in and then we'll pass a budget. Well, what we've seen over the last few years is at the end of the fiscal year, the collections are typically greater than what we estimate. So we're always trying to take the lower or the more conservative estimate.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing that, at the end of the year, you would create a surplus. Then we take those surplus dollars and we pay down debt, right?
Yeah.
So this year we put $150 million on the state police retirement debt. By doing that alone, and then we asked them to basically rebase their formula, they went in and they saved the state general fund $25 million just by the interest payments alone on that UAL debt payment. That's exactly what we wanted to do last year with the constitutional amendment. We wanted to take savings and pay down on the teachers' retirement debt.
And for some reason, people didn't like that.
Well, I think it was just so much at one time, and look, we took a step back. We took a step back, and Chairwoman Emerson and I'll say the governor, they really worked hard on coming up with and then the legislature between the House and the Senate, coming up with a good plan moving forward. We still want to do taking some of this savings and paying down the debt. Using that debt, it's going to save about $300 million in interest payments alone, and then we're going to request that the school boards use that savings to pay the teachers increased permanent pay raise. So I mean, that's a great thing to do, and you know, we're putting a lot more money on roads and bridges. We put a tremendous amount of the savings on the surplus on infrastructure, debt payments, debt service payments. So it's all good things when you think of it that way.
There's a lot of things you guys have to tackle down in Baton Rouge, aren't there?
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's been good. I mean, I've been there 10 years now, and I don't think I've ever seen the legislature with the governor working just for the same goal in mind, is to make Louisiana a better place. And then, of course, infrastructure. You know, we went in and reformed DOTD this year. You know, it's interesting when people think about and complain about our infrastructure, and it's bad. I mean, there's no way around saying it's really, really bad.
Yeah.
And you look at our gas tax, we collect about 20 cents a gallon on the state gas tax, and then it's 18 cents a gallon on the federal. But if you focus just on the state side, that 20 cents, every penny, so every cent per gallon generates about $30 million. So out of the 20 cents on the state side, it generates about $600 million. Jeff, guess how much of that goes to paying for roads and bridges?
600 million? I'm just
That's what it shows, right?
You're right.
Yeah. So that money is actually used to pay for a department. So that's to pay for salaries, benefits, retirements.
For that big building down in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, for the 4,000 DOTD employees. And it's nothing against the DOTD employees, but the way we're funding our roads and bridges, it's just not working.
Yeah.
So we're going in, and Chairman Boriak has done a phenomenal job moving this legislation and totally reforming the way that we fund DOTD. And instead of having 4,000 employees, I think the new agency, so to speak, has 3. Right? And,
really?
And none of them are civil service.
Wow.
And the way it works is if you're a contractor and I'm a contractor and our friend across the table is a contractor, we'll go in and we'll bid on a project design build to where you don't have 15 different engineers looking over and signing and doing all this stuff. Like if you get the bid, you're designing it, you're building it, you're going to work with the agency for the funding. And then it's on you. And look, we're pushing 62 bridges to get done in 15 months at a cost of $100 million. I mean,
well, one of them is over the Red River here between Bossier and Shreveport, right? The Jimmy Davis Bridge.
It's phenomenal, and I mean, like when you look at the civil service makeup of a lot of these agencies, it really makes it difficult to change things. Mm-hmm. So we're just trying to change overall, and our governor's got a great vision on that. It's exciting. So I think you're going to see a lot of movement when it comes to DOTD. We have about a $19 billion backlog.
Yeah, I knew. That jumped pretty fast because just a few years ago I did an interview with, I forget who it was now, but it was 14 million at that time. Now it's 19 million.
Yeah, when I started it was 14 to 15 billion. And, you know,
it was Jack McFarland. I'm sorry, I should remember that. Inflation
it's real, you know. So when you got to buy concrete, rebar, asphalt, sand, gravel, everything that goes with it, the labor that goes to putting it in, just keeps getting more and more expensive. So I think we're really on a path to address our infrastructure. And then the thing that, you know, I think I told you earlier, I toured the state last year. I went to about 85 different districts. Yeah. We have 105 members in the House. I went to about 80 to 85 of their districts. And what I heard loud and clear was insurance, 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 you know, everywhere you go. Yeah, and you know, people group insurance as a whole. They don't typically just talk about homeowners or just talk about auto insurance or just talk about their flood insurance. They talk about insurance and how bad it is. And what I want the people of Louisiana to know is that we hear them, we've heard them. We passed 51 insurance reform bills, 51. And some of these bills, I mean, you're talking about 40, 50 years trying to get these things done, and we got it done this year. And I think we're seeing 10 new property insurance companies coming in to write policies, which is going to create more competition. And then on the auto insurance side, we saw over 20 companies file for rate reductions, which is huge.
That is big.
Huge. You know, I've been talking to a lot of different people that I guess you would say lawyers or in the field of either filing lawsuits or defending lawsuits that are filed. And they're telling me that the amount of lawsuits that have been filed over the last year has been cut in half. And when you think about that, that's incredible.
That is a lot.
And I mean, I think that's really based off of the statute of limitations bill that we moved from 1 year to 2 years. We're one of the only states that had 1 year, and we moved that to 2 years. So there's a lot less lawsuits being filed. The bills that we passed, as they start taking, you know, going into effect, some of them aren't even in effect yet. When that starts happening, I think you're going to really start seeing a much more competitive market and our rates coming down. So it's very important to everyone. I know it's important to you.
Yeah, of course.
And then you talk about, well, why are these businesses wanting to be here? They want to have a competitive environment to have good business. And a couple other things that Louisiana has that I think that not many other states have is we have an ability to produce power and water, and people here want to work. We have a great workforce. So.
Hold your thought for just a second. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back with more with Phillip Devillier, Speaker of the House from the Louisiana Legislature. All right, he is soft-spoken, but he's like the Energizer Bunny. Ask one question and boom, you don't have to do much more. Just sit back and listen to the speaker pontificate on a whole bunch of different subjects. Everybody in our delegation from Northwest Louisiana tells me they love working with him, and he does a great job leading the House down in Baton Rouge. All right, we're going to have part 2 of our interview with Devillier coming up in here in just a second. Not as long as the first part, just a few minutes, but he does wrap things up by talking more about working with Louisiana's congressional delegation, which of course, as everybody knows, is led by Speaker of the House Mike Johnson of Bossier Parish. Also, he talks more about the attempts to reform automobile insurance in the state of Louisiana. So here we go with part 2 of our interview with Phillip Devillier, Speaker of the House of the Louisiana Legislature. All right, back with Phillip Devillier, Louisiana Speaker of the House. I wanted to ask you, well, let's go back to the auto insurance. I know you guys worked hard. There were some things that got done, some things that didn't. And people are still saying, well, I haven't seen my car rates go down yet. So where do we stand on that?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I will tell you is to certainly shop around. That's important. You know, I can tell you I've had State Farm. I'm not trying to give them a plug, but I've had them since I've started buying insurance when it comes to my homeowner's policy and my auto. And it takes time when you got to start calling different agencies and calling different insurers and trying to give them all your personal information and start going through that process. But everyone that I've talked to that have done that has seen a substantial savings in their premiums. So I think that's extremely important. But when you talk about what people are saying, like, you know, you did all these reform bills, when are we going to start seeing them take effect? It's kind of interesting because I know you probably can't tell, but I do try to go to the gym on occasion. Well, I walked in the gym and I was talking to the manager of it, and she's like, you know, I saw where you said y'all did all these reforms, my insurance isn't going down, and I said, listen, you work in the gym, I would love to look like I'm very healthy and in shape. I was like, can I get that overnight? She's like, no, it's going to take a couple of years. You know, you got to eat right, you got to exercise, you got to make sure you keep doing the right thing to get yourself in shape. And I think it's the same thing when it comes to policies, right? We pass bills, we pass legislation. You have a lot of things that are already in the pipeline, right? Those things have to go through the system, and they kind of are what they are. But the bills, I mean, like Emily Chenever's bill on modified comparative fault, I don't think that bill goes into effect for another couple months. You know, and that is probably the biggest tort reform bill that you can actually pass.
That's 51% in
That's
fault.
Correct. Yeah, and I mean, why in the world did we have pure comparative fault before? Well, that's what the insurance company said they wanted. Now they're saying they want them modified. So, and it wasn't an easy thing to get that passed. But look, I'll tell you, our insurance committees with the Speaker Pro Tem Mike Johnson and Gabe Firm at the chair, as well as Senate committees on, I would say, Senate insurance, and I guess it's Jude A or Jude B, I'm not sure of the committee. they started meeting and with our civil law committees right after session ended last year.
Yeah.
And they met for months and months and months and just going over what other states are doing, what works there, looking at the data, and then they came up with a strong and phenomenal package of bills. And, you know, did we pass everything? I will say we 100% passed everything that we were told would make a difference.
Yeah.
And I know you live in North Louisiana, but if you go down to South Louisiana and you meet with someone who lost a roof over a hurricane,
right,
or they got in an automobile accident, a real accident, and the insurance companies don't want to pay for whatever reason, and then you got to go hire a lawyer to get your roof back on your home,
right,
or to get your car back to where it's operational, or get yourself back healthy. You know, you have to bring a balanced approach when it comes to this type of legislation, because it's not real fair whenever the insurance companies don't take care of their policyholders, right?
Yeah,
and look, we do have a problem when it comes to the trial bar as well, but it's not just that. I mean, you got the court system, right? I think you have people that have a certain belief in what they believe is fair and what they don't believe is fair. So there's just a lot more to it than just one bill. And again, when you look at the 51 insurance reform bills, we should be extremely ecstatic and excited to see what's coming.
Well, I think the gym analogy is a pretty good one, right?
Yeah.
It takes a little while.
It does, absolutely.
Okay. I want to pivot back to the safety and crime just for a second. Because as you know, President Trump has been putting federal troops in various places around the country. And Governor Landry has said, you want to put them in Louisiana, bring them. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And look, when I go around the state and I'm talking to sheriff departments or chiefs of police, and I ask them, like, what is it that we can do in the legislature to help you be more effective in your communities? And what is it you feel like the people are most reactive to? And they said presence. It's amazing when we can have more police officers on the streets, the amount of crime that goes down. And I really and truthfully think when you're going to take our National Guard troops and you can show presence in areas of our state, you know, whether it's here in Shreveport or Bossier or in Baton Rouge or New Orleans or wherever the crime rates need to be addressed, I think just having that presence there is going to be extremely helpful. I was on the governor, I think this weekend, or maybe it was on Monday, about his decision to bring in the troops with the governor, and I think it's a good idea. I think anytime that we can have presence here, crime rates are going to be reduced, people can feel safe. I don't know who wouldn't want that and why.
Yeah, well, it seems to get a lot of negative reaction in certain places of the country, right?
Absolutely.
All right. What about, of course, we know the federal government shutdown is pending as we speak.
That's right.
If that were to happen, what effect does that have on Louisiana?
Yeah, look, that's a great question. And I was with Chairman McFarland yesterday, and we were having that very same conversation.
Head of the Appropriations Committee.
Yeah, yes, sir. The head of our appropriations, who will be here shortly. He's a great guy. He's doing a phenomenal job. And we were talking to staff, and, you know, my concerns was, well, what about TSA? You know what I mean? Will that shut down flights, or the post office, or whatever, you know, you might see as considered to be federally funded. And we feel like if there is a shutdown, it would be temporary, and we don't think it's going to be anything that would be a major disaster. Now, I'll tell you, I, along with quite a few members of the House, sent a letter to the Senate, the U.S. Senate, asking them to please pass a clean HR to where we can fund the government moving forward. We don't want to see a whole lot of things added to the bill, and try to keep our spending at a reasonable rate. So I think we're going to be okay.
Well, I mean, I know that's what Mike Johnson is fighting for, because we're all proud of Mike.
I am as well.
Up from here. But if they don't pass that clean CR, the negative effects on Louisiana are
no. I mean,
much.
I would say the clean CR is just not growing the spending in other areas that we probably you or I wouldn't really appreciate. Right. But I would say if they pass the spending bill the way it is, we're going to be in good shape. And you know, what we need to be paying attention to closely is our healthcare systems, making sure that we're taking care of all of our community health cares and our hospitals and things of that nature. That's extremely important. But as far as the funding, I would say for our infrastructure, we're just going to keep moving along.
Okay. So down to our last couple minutes here, and we've alluded to it several times, but Louisiana's congressional delegation, which is, everybody always says, the cliche is we punch way above our weight up in Washington, D.C. It's just a cliche, but it's very true.
Very true.
So how does the legislature in Baton Rouge work with our congressional delegation?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're well aware, if not all, the majority of the members there have served in the legislature, And even the ones that haven't. I mean, I know Congressman Higgins hasn't. I don't think Congressman Letlow has. But, I mean, they all work hand in glove with us, and we work with them. And I think that is just phenomenal when you think about it. I mean, Speaker Mike Johnson sat on the side of me in the House when he was there. But no, we have a great relationship, and I think it's extremely important in anything that you do to make sure that you have the best relationship that you can, because when you work together with people, that's how you succeed.
When you pick up the phone and call the speaker, does he answer?
I'll tell you, I feel certain he would. Every now and then he reaches out, but I try not to disturb our speaker at all. I know how busy he is, and he does such a great job. I mean, he is in my prayers. I pray for him every week. And I can't think of a better person to be in that position. We're truly blessed. All
right, we're going to wrap this up. Any final thoughts you want to leave us with?
No, I mean, thank you for asking me to come here today for this interview.
Sure.
I look forward to the great things that we're doing in Louisiana to just continue to happen. And we're moving right along.
All right, well, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.
Phillip Devillier, Speaker of the House for the Louisiana Legislature. Back with more after this. All right, well, pretty interesting conversation with the Louisiana speaker. Talked about a myriad of subjects during that conversation. So we appreciate you being with us. That's going to do it for this episode of the app, which, of course, as I explained, stands for Architects, People, and Politics. It's available on all major podcast platforms, wherever you get your podcast. Best way to search for it is KTBS, the app, and it'll pop right up. It's also available on all KTBS digital platforms as well. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a good one, everybody.